Music. It's an integral piece of almost every human society that has ever existed. Here in the West, we've been exposed to seemingly endless different kinds of music, and even though people have rejected new forms of music in the past, there's always an audience yearning for something new and creative from this industry. Unless, of course, you like music from video games. How dare you like music from video games? If you've been watching my channel for even a few months, it's no secret to you that I love video game music. It's my favorite kind of music because it uses the entire narrative from the game as a foundation for its meaning. It's not just notes on a staff anymore. The addition of inherent visual representation is making composers better than ever at perfecting the environment. It's a form of music that's only going to get more popular as the years go on, whether you like it or not. But from my perspective, many people are rejecting video game OST as real music, the same way people rejected jazz music in the early 20th century. They say if you listen to music from video games, it's because you're antisocial and can't relate to others, or that it's not real music because in some games they don't use real instruments. In my opinion, those claims are both pretty stupid and are both used by people to discourage your passion for this new form of art. In today's video, I'm going to be talking more about video game music. We're going to begin by discussing why I think video game music is overall the best music being made in the current day, which I understand is a very hot take, but it's a take I stand by, and on this channel I tell the truth about my opinions. So now that that's out of the way, let's begin. Okay, so I actually lied in the intro. We're actually going to begin by debunking this statement on screen. Video game music isn't real music. I mean, this is the entire point of the video, so it's only fair we tackle this first. Now, I'm not sure how many of you have heard people say this, but it's definitely an opinion held by a lot of people. Not to be the living nerd emoji or anything, but this statement is just obviously, objectively untrue. First of all, let's break down the definition of music. Google defines music as vocal or instrumental sounds, or both, combined in such a way as to produce beauty of form, harmony, and expression of emotion. Wikipedia defines music as the arrangement of sound to create some combination of form, harmony, melody, rhythm, or otherwise expressive content. So let's ask the question, where in either of those definitions did it specifically exclude music created for video games? Video game soundtracks are made of vocal or instrumental sounds, and they're combined to produce beautiful form using harmony, melody, and expression of emotion. Now, I highly doubt people who use this phrase literally mean that it's not real music. So then what do they mean? They could just mean that video game music is so incredibly different than other music genres we have. Video game music varies in atmosphere, varies in instruments, it varies in everything. So maybe it's difficult for people to consider it to be its own genre. I mean, would you really consider Animal Crossing's music in the same genre as Doom Eternal? Bad example, but you get what I mean. It almost seems like video game music isn't categorizable because of this. Honestly, if so, I think this is a big nothing burger. The fact that it's difficult to place video game music into its own genre only goes to show how creative and original it is. Just because it can't all be lumped into one cohesive category doesn't mean it's not real music, and it certainly doesn't mean it's bad either. But I think I've come up with a solution to this problem, even if it really isn't one. So you know how there's multiple periods of classical music throughout history? There's the Baroque period, known for its fanciness, the classical period, known for its structure, the romantic period, known for its boldness and creativity. I could keep going on. These are basically subgenres of classical music. So there's the solution. Video game music is its own genre, but made up of many subgenres. But now we'll get to some of the more defamatory accusations against the art of video game music. The first thing many people say about video game music is that it's unrelatable to the general public, thus it is antisocial. Now, I've heard the arguments made, video game music is antisocial because you never hear it being played out in public, and the reason it isn't played out in public is because it's not relatable to people. I want to start by saying, neither is music from movies then? Like, yeah, you rarely hear Star Wars music in public, but that doesn't mean John Williams' compositions are antisocial. You're just placing them in an area where they aren't trying to belong to. John Williams is the greatest living composer at the moment, but if you took his music and put it into a My Little Pony episode, of course it's going to sound out of place. Or what about the theme from the original Super Mario Bros? You know, the composition that almost every human being of this century can recite note for note. How is this antisocial? Like, imagine if you went back in time to the 1400s and started playing a Taylor Swift song where she's talking about a recent breakup she had. Nobody in the year 1453 would relate to that at all. So I guess that makes it antisocial, right? Plus, I don't even agree with saying this type of music is antisocial. Do people realize there is live concerts for music made for video games? Do people just conveniently forget about that in order to push their narrative? Or what about the fact that I've made countless videos on my channel about my love for music from video games, and thousands of other people have responded responded by sharing that same exact passion. Does that not just completely dismantle the antisocial claim right away? I've talked to hundreds of people in person about this passion as well. Me and my dad have talked about our mutual love for soundtracks like Super Castlevania 4 and The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. I mean, this whole argument is based on the low-effort assumption that if you like this type of music, you're just a smelly loser who can never relate to anybody in the real world. But what about social gatherings? What about car rides? Why is video game OST never played during these events? I think this says more about our declining culture than it does about the quality of video game music. Like, you're telling me that listening to an orchestral masterpiece from a game like Super Mario Galaxy is less relatable to the public than a song where a woman constantly talks about her private parts. I mean, even saying that out loud is just ridiculous. Now, you can like whatever music floats your boat, but if you want to judge people for liking music from video games, I'll judge you for thinking that a song like this is more relatable just because it's not from a video game. And it's not like this is the only song out there with repulsive, disgusting, degenerate lyrics with zero meaning or thought behind it. Ever heard of Ice Spice? But let's get back to the social gatherings argument. Let me ask you a question. What are some differences between classical music and video game music? There's less differences than you think. They're both very similar forms of music, the only core differences being that video game music is newer, more original, has way more instruments and possibilities, and is way better at portraying the intended environment. I like classical music as well, but all bias aside, video game music is just a modern day improvement. So let's say we're at a wedding. They decide to play Für Elise by Beethoven, a beautiful icon of classical music. Then the next song they choose is Comet Observatory from Super Mario Galaxy. Now tell me, if you were someone who never heard either compositions before and just heard these two songs back to back, which one would you say is more relatable? There's no correct answer. It's entirely subjective. In fact, you might not even be able to tell that one of them is from a video game. The reason I chose the Super Mario Galaxy song for the earlier example is that I think this game's music expresses similar emotion to the romantic period of classical music, and I think those two songs would both equally fit well at a wedding. So the only reason people think video game music is antisocial is because they're trying to put them in social situations where their type of music doesn't belong. You're judging the entire art of video game music because it wouldn't sound right inside a mall, disregarding the fact that this is the most complicated genre of music in the history of the art form. In my opinion, a big reason for mainstream music fitting well in multiple social scenarios is because it's unoriginal throwaway noise that deserves no more attention than the background of a grocery store or a distraction from a long car ride. But shitting on modern music is not my main goal with this video, so let's move on. There's one more thing I want to address, and it's about the instruments used in video game music. A lot of games do not use real instruments. Many people think that this means it's not real music. However, that's just categorically false if we analyze more definitions. Let's review the definition of instrument. According to Wikipedia, a musical instrument is a device created to make musical sounds. In principle, any object that produces sound can be considered a musical instrument. And if you think I'm ignoring the word object in this definition, I'm not. The definition is using this example because tangible physical instruments are the overwhelming majority of most instruments. The definition in no way states that a digital instrument is exempt from being considered an instrument, because that would be contradicting the definition of music we looked at a few minutes ago. The thing we need to pay attention to is the beginning sentence. This includes instruments made in digital softwares. Digital instruments are still instruments whether people choose to admit that or not. Yes, I personally prefer live in-person instruments, but if a game like Undertale uses digital softwares to create its sound, it's still real music by every definition we've went over today. An instrument does not have to be tangible in order to be an instrument. All an instrument is the tool you use in order to create music. And all music is, if you've been paying attention to the definitions, is sound created to combine form, harmony, melody, and rhythm. There's absolutely no reason that a composition should be dismissed immediately just because it doesn't use live instruments. I mean, just look at the Super Nintendo, for example. This console is loaded with classics, and every one of them has a masterful soundtrack to go with it. I mean, David Wise, composer of Donkey Kong Country, was doing things no other composer in the history of mankind has even attempted, and this was all in on the 16-bit era of video games. Imagine what composers can pull off today. The truth is, we don't really have to imagine because we're living through it. It's an art form that's only going to get better as the years go on. I really do think that the mid-90s symbolizes a turning point in which video game music begins to surpass other forms in quality and originality. Now that I'm done responding to some criticisms of it, let's actually explore some of the things I love about video game music. First of all, we've talked about how much variety this genre has. It's legitimately endless. Whether you want something cozy or you want something that gives you goosebumps, there's something for you no matter what. And that's the beauty of this genre. You can like any type of music and there's going to be something for you in video games. Another big thing I look for in video game music is emotion. Video game music is able to create some phenomenal emotion in its harmonies, especially to those who know the context and narrative of the environment it's designed around. Now, video game OST is still enjoyable even if you don't know much about the game, but if you already heard the track in-game, it's destined to hit you like a truck when you recall the memories of that moment. Composers know this and it's why they're able to take advantage of it, which feeds into my next reason. Video game music, in my opinion, is the best genre at getting the most out of music. Composers in this industry know what their music means. They know it's about more than just creating a catchy tune. It has to mean something, to be something, to represent something bigger than just cool sounds. Because these tracks have a visual setting to go by, the foundation of the music is easy to understand and easy to perfect. Now, there's other musicians that are good at doing this, but video game composers, they absolutely nail the environments they're tasked with portraying. And when you're done playing the game and you want to relive it, you open up YouTube or Spotify, find the track, and you're immediately brought back to the world that you were able to be the hero in. As you're listening, you can picture a flawless memory of that moment and the feelings you had during that experience, and maybe even the feelings of the character that you take control of. And like I keep saying, composers know this. They know their work has this emotional impact on the ones who enjoy these games. They know it's going to stick with them for the rest of their life. And why wouldn't they know? At the end of the day, they're the ones who made it possible. Video game music uses more emotion than ever before, more instruments than ever before. It's easy to see why it's only getting better with age. The conclusion to this video should not be that video game music is the only good music nowadays, because it's not. There's still good musicians out there in basically every genre of music, that's undeniable. But the difference is they get the respect their music deserves, whereas video game music does not. My wish is for video game music to be respected just the same as any other form, because truth be told, I think this art form has proven itself to be more than capable of having some of the best compositions of all time. I not only want the music to be appreciated, I want the composers to be known worldwide just as classical music composers were. These composers deserve to be remembered as some of the greatest composers ever. And if you personally don't enjoy music from video games, that's okay. I don't enjoy music where women talk about their private parts. Everybody has their own music tastes, but it's our job to not be assholes to each other about it. Most of my friends have completely different music tastes than I do, and that's not worth creating a division over. Overall, I don't care if you dislike video game music on a subjective level, but I do care that it's easily the most disrespected music genre because that needs to change. Video game music is real music with real instruments, real composers, and real masterpieces. And with that, thanks for watching, everybody.